We're back to the Neil Haley Show on the Total Celebrity segment. And I had this guy on about probably a year and a half ago, right when American Housewife debuted, and he had a guest star appearance in it. But now he has a film coming out, but I can really now have a little bit of longer conversation with him about Barney Miller, his entire career, and his film. So I'm excited to welcome to the program Hal Linden. Hal, how are you? Great to chat with you again. At least we're not on this radio tour thing where you have to hit to the next city. I have you for a little bit longer today. How are you?
Okay, this could be a long interview if you're going to do my entire career, Barney Miller and my picture. But let's get started. Go ahead.
No, I would never. I would never go out. We can take the short version of it. Hal, we could have 15 different parts. I'm very good at saying, okay, Hal, we got to move on. But meaning 8 minutes is like too not enough time when we got to chat the last time. So let's talk about specifically enough how you auditioned for Barney Miller. Like, where were you at in your acting career till you got this big opportunity?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hang on. I never auditioned for Barney Miller.
Really?
No, I never auditioned. Danny Arnold, who created Barney Miller, saw me on Broadway in The Rothschilds. And when 2 years later, by the way, I never knew he was there. He didn't send me a note. He didn't come backstage. I never met him. And 2 years later, he was casting Barney Miller. And the network gave him a list of all the people they thought would be a terrific Barney Miller, with high, what do you call them, TV cues. And he said, actually, I saw this actor on Broadway. I'm going to use him. And that was it.
Wow. Okay, so you never auditioned, and so you were on Broadway. So tell me, is that pretty much what you wanted to do, Hal, in your career before getting this opportunity in Barney Miller, is be more of a stage actor?
Excuse me, I tripped into the acting business. I was in the music business. I was a professional musician for 14 years before I ever set foot on a Broadway stage. So it was an almost accidental thing that got me into theater and on stage. And when I was on Broadway, that was my, I spent the first 15 years of my career, 16, 17 years or 18, something like that, on Broadway. And that was my concentration. I had done the occasional TV in New York. I had done the occasional guest shot in California, but Barney just kind of jumped up at me. Once I won the Tony, there were a lot of offers. That was the one. That was the
wow
deciding factor.
So everyone else had to audition except you. So there you go. They found the perfect person then, for sure.
And not only that, I'll tell you more about it. The original pilot of Barney Miller did not sell.
Wow.
It was on the summer as, the ABC Comedy Theater. And Danny Arnold, with his determination, somehow got them to make 2 more episodes. By this time, I was not under contract. The pilot I had only signed for the pilot. And he called me in New York and said, would you come out and do 2 more episodes? Now, I had on my plate a starring role in a Broadway musical, and I had to make my mind up whether I was going to do 2 more episodes of Barney Miller or a potential starring role on Broadway. What would you have done?
I would. And you made the right choice, right? You could have just gone on Broadway.
And let me tell you, it was relatively cavalier when I made it. I had to, eventually I was under the gun. I had to do it by close of business this Friday. And I sat in my manager's office and he looked at me and says, you got to make a decision. And it came out like this, I swear. I said, all right, listen, we've done Broadway. Let's try TV. It was that cavalier.
Wow.
So, wow, indeed.
See, but that's
I've
because
always lived with that.
You're the artist.
That
right. It's the art.
Decisions made on the spur of the moment determined my life, basically.
You're an artist, so you were, again, a performer in a different way, and a musician. So as artists, you kind of always have that creative feel to say, let me try something new. Let me try something different. Because when you're writing music or playing music, you want something different in a way. Yeah.
In a sense, that's how I got into the theater. I was, as I said, a working musician in the big band era. And I was the boy singer and the jazz saxophone player. And I had a relatively good career. I went in the Army, and I was drafted. When I came out, all the big bands were disbanded. It was all gone. It was now rock and roll. And I wasn't all that nuts about rock and roll, specifically early rock and roll. It was really so simplistic, it turned me off. And I said, well, let's give this acting a shot. Because I had done some soldier shows while I was in the Army.
Right.
And it was that cavalier again. But that's what happens. You make those decisions, and look what happens.
So how did they think that you were perfect for this position? Because you're mild mannered as the police chief, for sure, of the precinct.
Yeah.
You had that, but you again, people didn't want to cross you when you got angry on the show. I watched it all the time.
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word mild mannered. I would use the word in control.
In control. Yeah.
He was in control of a situation. When it took a little extra heat, he put the extra heat on. When it took diplomacy, he used diplomacy. More in control than mild-mannered. Sounds like he couldn't blow if he had to.
I mean, but again, you had that cool about you. I guess it's the cool Hal.
Right.
Yeah.
Sense of control. Yeah.
Yeah, that coolness. But again, let's think about the cast now. You know, Abe Vigoda, that really probably, was he the biggest of the stars, Hal, on the show that going into this, you think, gnome-wise?
You know, Abe Vigoda.
Yeah.
Abe Vigoda, I don't know if you think about this. Abe Vigoda was on the show for 3 years. That was it.
Really? Okay.
Out of 8.
Out of 8.
Out of 8. Yes, Abe Vigoda was indeed the star that came out of it, but he went to his own show called Fish, and that was not successful. And Abe only made one appearance after that, coming back to visit. So the show went on long past Abe. You had Max Scale and
right.
Ron Glass and the inspector, all kinds of wonderful performers. Linda Lavin was a regular for about 4 months, and then she got her own show, so Linda left. There were a lot of pretty terrific performers on that show.
Did you have
actors? Let me put it that way.
Exactly, actors. So again, you came in from right. You came from the stage. How did people feel?
Theater background,
theater background. What did they think about that, especially with some of the other actors? Did you guys get along well together for all those years you had the show?
Oh yeah. Once it was like a repertory company, because we knew our characters and we were able to add to the characters when we and everybody had their moment. Early on in a sitcom, there's maybe a little heat as to who's going to get the attention. Are you going to be a background character, or are you going to be an important character? So early on, there may be a little tension, but once it got swinging and everybody had their moment and everybody had their opportunity to show what they can do, it was terrific. For 8 years, we didn't really have any dust-ups on the show. Any major dust-ups, right? That way.
Yeah, it definitely sounded like it was for sure. And what do you think of your character and that character development? How did you prepare to be Barney Miller when they gave you the idea of who's this character? You didn't have to audition, so you get this character. How did you kind of develop that character throughout the 7-year period?
A lot of it was done the first time I got on the set. I worked around the set. There were pictures, if you remember, on the wall.
Yes.
And I created my life out of those pictures. That was my Uncle Nate. He was his graduation to when he became a detective. And he was the influence in my life. I created Uncle Nate out of one of my uncles, and I created my life walking around that room looking at the pictures that they had put up on the wall. As far as being a police officer, we had on set in the beginning an advisor who told us what is done and what is not done. So I had a human being as my research telling me the limitations of the character. And beyond that, there was a limitation in Danny's mind.
Yeah.
Danny wanted us all to be functioning police officers. And if you think about it, every one of us was.
Yes.
He put it this way. He said, if you came up with an outrageous bit or something, he would say, would you go for help to a police officer who behaves like that? So we had our limitations, and as I say, some of them was script limitations, and some of them were done out of research with police officers who told us how it goes. And by the way, it ended up, Joe Wambaugh, for instance, called it the most realistic police show, because that's what happens in a police station. Very few shots are fired. None were shot on Barney. Off stage, there was a couple of incidents in the 8 years, but most of it was getting information, developing information sources, putting the information down on paper, disseminating that information. That's what we did. And that's the most realistic representation of what police work is about.
Yes, it definitely is.
Particularly detective work.
Yeah, I agree, because again, it's not always this, action. Who would have thought a show like this would get going in this time period? Because you had it really, it's a drama, and I talked about last time I interviewed you, I was listening to it, and I talked about a comedy, even though it wasn't a comedy, but the audience laughed at specific things. It was more, again, real life drama without having to really have lots of action scenes, meaning, on the streets and different things. There were some episodes like that.
Right.
And it was the kind of almost like the Jeffersons in a way, where they were stuck in different areas and they really never went out in the streets. That's almost the same kind of picture that was painted with this show. Could you imagine them with the cop dramas after that? So what did police officers think of your show? Because, like certain police...
Telling you, Rick,
yeah.
I'm telling you what Joe Wambaugh said. And I've got honorary badges from a dozen cities that decided, they wanted a cop like Barney. Police officers recognized it. I got tons of mail from police officers, and they always said the same thing. They send a picture, and each character had a name. One was Wojo, one was Fish, one characters in their police precincts that behave just like the characters on our show. So it was a very realistic show. It was never a drama, though. Now, we did some important and dramatic themes, dealt with, one guy built an atomic bomb,
Right.
They were not fluff, but we dealt with it in a comedic way, always.
Yeah.
Always in a comedic way. Yeah.
So what would you define the show? A comedy or it was a mixture?
It was a comedy,
yeah.
Definitely a comedy. Always everything was looked at in its comedic terms. Yes, there were dramatic moments. I remember a father whose daughter was lost. He was, looking for her. Yes, there were dramatic moments, but that was left to the people who came into the squad room. They were the ones who held the drama.
Right.
we kept it going or found the comedic side of it. Always finding the comedic side.
I agree. And then also think about it how, in a way that you talked about on the show last time I interviewed you, you talked about the specifics of you took real life things that were happening in New York City at that time that happened. Yeah. Go ahead.
The writers would sit around and read the newspaper.
Wow.
They would read the newspaper. And they said, oh, here's a story about a guy, hey, look, and then they'd find the comedic aspect of that and write a script on it. Defection, Russians defecting, to America. There was a story in the newspaper, and that served almost every theme came right out of the headlines of the day.
It definitely did.
Yeah.
And think about it. I was watching an episode. This is the other cool thing. Will you ever stop seeing Barney Miller on television? I mean, you will live on forever because think about it in a lot of ways. I was watching an episode. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so go ahead.
I just want to tell you, I intend to.
Okay, good.
I intend to. I'm sorry, you're saying you were watching an episode?
Yeah, well, I was watching about, again, costs where you were cutting costs and they were going to close your precinct and there was lots of crime in New York City. And that's what truly was happening in New York City at that time. So, again, yeah.
As I said, right out of the newspaper.
All right, so life after Barney Miller. You were typecasted, for sure.
Life after
Barney.
Let's take a skip to my latest film.
Okay. I was going to really quickly in Life After, and then we'll jump right to the film. I am ready to go after that. Okay. Now, real quick, how, like, Life After, how did you did you go back into theater or did you do some more films? What was the thing after Barney Miller? Music? Both. Yeah.
Both. All three. All. I did and have been doing and still do a concert that I perform, mostly for older audiences who know who the hell I am and what I do. I have done films. I have done television. I had 3 series after that, unfortunately, not as successful as Barney. I don't know how many guest shots on different shows. Also did films. I did a film with Marcel and Lemon. I did a film with Alan Alda. I did a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm still doing it to this day.
Exactly. Now we'll talk about the Samuel Project.
And I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, but you keep rolling, man. You're going. That's for sure, and that's awesome. Now let's talk about the Samuel Project. Again, I was reading up on it, and really, it's great because of the history portion of this, and to look at. So, tell us about your character and how important it is in the story, and heroic what you had to go through.
Okay, first of all, you haven't seen it, you just read about it?
Yes, I just read about it. Yes, did not see it. No one sent me the...
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, we got to get you to see it so you have an opinion on it. It's about a young boy, a high school senior, who wants to be an artist. He's taking a course in media in high school, and he gets an assignment to do a project using multimedia and all the media they've been studying, but it has to have a history to it. It has to be a true historical event, any true historical event. He has a father who's a real estate salesman who says all I can afford is community college, and the kid is trying like mad to get into art, to continue his art studies.
Right.
He discovers that his grandfather has an interesting backstory. He doesn't know it yet, but he sees an event in his grandfather's life that gets him to focus in on his grandfather's story. Guess what? I play the grandfather.
Right.
A dry cleaner who kind of runs his own shop. That's his whole life. So you got three generations, and not unnaturally 3 generations that do not communicate. Generations specifically divide themselves from the past I remember as a kid, I did it. I'm not going to cut my hair that way. I'll cut it this way. I'm not going to listen to your music. I'm going to listen to my music, right? I came up with groovy and
Right.
cool, you know. My parents didn't know what I was talking about, specifically to divide the generations. But in that process, we lose wisdom, history, experience, all kinds of things. So this boy sets out to convince his grandfather to tell him his story so that he can make it his art project. That's the Samuel Project. I play Samuel. And it is a story that took place in Nazi Germany in the late 30s and during World War II.
Yes.
So it's a fascinating story, which Grandpa is not really willing to talk about. Most survivors,
Right, they're not.
don't want to talk
No.
about it. It's painful.
Yes.
As he says in the picture, I'm done remembering, and what I do remember, I don't want to remember. So this is the job of the kid, and Ryan Ochoa, who plays my grandson, sets about to convince me to tell him the story, and against all odds, he creates the Samuel Project, which at the end of the picture, in a sense, brings the three generations back together. They're all sharing this story that he hadn't talked about. His father didn't even know about
Right.
it, much less the grandson. So in a sense, we're talking about art being more eloquent than words. Words never got them together, but art did. It's about getting history to the next generations. I don't have to tell you that we're running out of Holocaust survivors.
Yes, we are.
And there's going to be nobody to tell the story. Ryan Ochoa, after we finished the picture, he came to me, he says, it's incumbent upon the young generation to go to the older generation
Yes.
and get the stories,
Truly.
get the history.
Yes.
Because they're the ones who are going to pass it down. So they have to be the diggers, the researchers. In any case, what you see is again art bringing a family
Yes.
together.
Truly.
They now have something to talk about, not something to reach each other with. Basically, that's basically the story of the picture.
And how does again Samuel able to overcome? He forgets, but to overcome that adversity
I'm
and
sorry,
challenge.
I'm losing you. Say
No,
it again.
no. I said, how was Samuel able to overcome in his life to be successful in life after the challenges that he dealt with in Nazi Germany to overcome the Holocaust and survive?
Well, a lot of that, that's on the individual thing. We have stories of a lot of very successful Holocaust survivors. My God, millionaires, billionaires in America.
Truly, yeah.
Samuel did it through a little retail dry cleaning store. He wasn't all that. He was successful in life, if you will.
Yes.
But not.
Truly, yeah.
He was never rich.
But it's heroic. It's a heroic part you play. It's because of the challenges and then overcoming those, and to really bring back. And I think this is the important thing, to know history, because people forget history. Hal, right? We in our classrooms in the class. Yeah.
He who doesn't study history is doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
Don't ever forget that. That's the truth of it. If we don't know where we've been, we can never know where we're going. So there is that further point to be made out of the picture.
History's controversial, Hal. People don't like controversy unless it's a soundbite. They never want to dig deep into things and look at things really deep and say, "Oh my, this is really the reason why this is happening." We could look at history today, right now, that's happening today, Hal, and look at why it's happening today because of certain reasons that have happened in history.
Well, excuse me, you're making my point. He who ignores history is doomed to repeat it. If we don't If we don't learn and open ourselves to the truths of the matter, let me put it on a. I was listening to a political thing, and people were saying, how can people be denying, for instance, climate change? When all the evidence is there, we're seeing it every day. What's happening
Right.
to the planet, and yet there are people denying that it's true, and they don't want to know about it. Well, they're going to participate in the effects as the people of southern Florida are discovering today, of the panhandle of Florida. That hurricane, the hurricanes are getting bigger
Yes.
and wilder and crazier, and our climate's getting crazier. There are people still saying, I don't want to hear about it because it interferes with my income, my net profits. I can't. We can deny all we like, but reality will rear its head. And if we didn't ignore history, we're going to pay for it in the long run. Maybe not me, because I'm old, but youth will.
Yes.
And it's more important for the youth to understand
Yes.
that they have to be aware not only of the facts of life today, but what led to it.
Absolutely. All right, Hal.
God, this sounds like I'm not running for office.
You are going to run for office. Come on now, Hal. I'm ready. President Hal Linden. Come on. You're going to run again. You're on my show to announce you're going to run for president. I mean, everyone's going to run against for president in 2020, right? They all have that announced. That kid. Yeah.
2020. Make it 2021. I'll be 90 years old.
Are you kidding me? Really? Wow. How do you owe it to how energetic you are, Hal? I didn't know energetic. How you're really just going and not stopping. Yeah.
That's it. That's the word. Don't stop. Satchel Paige don't look back. You don't know who's following you. Don't look back, look forward, and just keep going. That's all.
All right. So, Hal, basically, best place we can find information on the film and where we could see it. Where's the best place we can go?
That you'll have to ask some other people. I don't have the.
I would just Google. Yeah.
It's in certain Lemley theaters and AMC theaters. I really don't know where they're playing.
So just look up
your local listing. Isn't that what you're saying?
Exactly. Or Google it. No, it's Google it now, Hal. Just Google it. Yeah.
It'll tell you what theater in your neighborhood is showing. It is not a studio release, so you're not going to see big ads for it, I'm afraid. So if you want to see the picture, and I really recommend it, it was a joy to make and a joy to see. Seriously, check your Google. It'll tell you where you are, where it's been playing locally.
All right. Well, Hal, and you're not on social media tweeting up all the time, right? Or Facebook or any of that stuff, are you? No.
I think I have a page. What do you call it?
Yeah.
But somebody else runs it. And they put what I'm doing on it, basically.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what Hal Linden is doing, it's hallinden.net.
All right. Well, thanks for calling, Hal. Appreciate you coming on the show. Best of luck with everything. And for president in 2020, I'm ready. I already got the bumper sticker ready, and then we're going to Hal Linden, here we come for president. All right. Take care, man.
Okay.
Good talking to you.
You got it.
All right. See ya.
Good talking to you.
See ya. Thanks. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Neil Haley Show. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back. The Neil Haley Show on the Total Celebrity segment's Caregiver Dave segment. All right, I'm excited to welcome the program my co-host, Caregiver Dave. Dave, I'm so excited about our guest. Go ahead and introduce him for us.
We have an icon in 70s television, I would say, Barry Williams. And you might better know him as Greg Brady because we grew up with him. And I always remember that screen with the 9 little boxes. And Barry, which box were you in? Remind me.
I would be, as you're looking at the television, the top right. I've been struggling to get out of that box ever since.
Of course. Hey, I am so glad to hear you. What's been going on in your life?
Well, I would hardly know where to begin, but let's start with this. I never thought I'd leave Los Angeles, where I grew up and where I filmed all the television shows that I did. I moved to Branson, Missouri, which is in the middle of America, the Ozark Mountains.
Retirement capital of the world, right?
Well, I think there are people here that come for that. But a lot of vacationers, a lot of tourists come in. We have 100 different shows here, all kinds of music shows, musical variety shows, attractions. It's a resort community.
Yeah, Wayne Newton's still there, right?
Wayne was here for a bit, as were many major country stars and Vegas stars. And I came here to do just that. Let me put it in these terms: to relive my Johnny Bravo days. That would be.
Are you a singer?
A rock show, and yeah, I've been singing my entire life.
Oh, wow.
And not a lot of people know that I spent my adult life in musical theater, some 85 different productions, worked on Broadway and did Broadway national tours, been all over the country multiple times. Some of the great shows ever written, like Music Man and Sound of Music and Oklahoma and like that. And still working television, and I'm a musician and singer as well.
You know what? You have something in common with Suzanne Summers. You know what that is?
Multi-talented.
After she got fired from Three's Company, her agent says, "Can you sing? I can book you in Vegas." She goes, "Well, yeah, I can sing." And she had a very lucrative singing career, and of course, she became an author. So let's start with the Brady Bunch. Tell me about the interview process. How did that go? How did you were just in the right place at the right time?
Pretty well. I got the job. No, it wasn't quite like that. There were hundreds and hundreds of kids that were called. Yeah. But I even at my age, I was when we did the auditions, I was 13 years old. And I've been working for a few years in show business and in television, and I had amassed a few credits from those classic days, like the Mod Squad and Gomer Pyle and
I remember Mod Squad,
Marcus Welby and Mission Impossible, and I had done 2 shows that were directed by the same director as the Brady Bunch pilot, the first episode, and the first 5 episodes that we actually filmed. So that director was a part of the casting process, and I had worked with him in both That Girl with Marlo Thomas and with a Gomer Pyle, Jim Neighbors. And so he was familiar with me. The studio was familiar with me. The network was aware of me. And I guess as they did all of the sorting out of who is who and who's going to go with who, I fit the suit. So right age, and
you were bringing in a steady income. It sounds like you were working.
I was very busy as a kid. I had one of the best stereo systems with my JBL speakers and my dual turntable and my component system with the TIAC tape recorder and on the whole block.
Barry, the other Brady kids, were they as experienced as you going into this show? Because again, it's important to have all the background and experience you had in acting and singing and all those different things going into the show.
Everybody had varying degrees of experience. Michael Lookenland had done 2 commercials, and I had been, I guess, more active than most of the kids, but they had varying degrees. I wasn't the first one picked by our producer who did the interviews. That would be Susan Olsen. He just fell in love with Cindy, who became Cindy Brady. Thought she was perfect for the role.
Yeah, she was a cutie.
Yeah. Well, what a lot of people don't know is we played after those 5 years as a family, but we became a kind of a family. It's been for all of us. My Brady mates and I have maintained our relationships. We still are in touch with one another. We do projects together. We see each other socially, and have shared all of the major events of our lives, good and challenging. Like getting married and having children, and as our parents have passed, and we have maintained our friendship. So, which has been kind of like what you see is what you get.
Wow, how cool is that? I've heard an interview from your TV father that he really didn't expect it to be a hit. He just expected 1 year and he was going to be out. And he felt trapped when it just kept getting renewed and renewed because he wanted out and they wouldn't let him out, would they?
No, I think it was not because of the kids. He liked and appreciated all of us, like his kids, but he was not a fan of the style of humor that was written for our show. So he not only did he didn't think the original pilot show, the one that you have to take to the network and shop to get picked up for a season, he didn't think that would sell. And he was quite surprised as it kept going and going, and like the Ever Ready battery.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a cult following. I mean, I remember even my kids growing up. I mean, it was always on television. I think it still is.
Well, yes, it is. One of the networks that it's never been off television in it'll be 50 years next year.
Well, I hope you had a good contract. You're getting good residuals.
I'm doing fine. I'm doing just fine, living where I want to be and enjoying life, living on the lake and making choices, saying yes and saying no. That's freedom.
That's definitely. So, Barry, I wanted to ask about, again, you talking about your TV father and stuff. What kind of relationship did you guys have? Would he help you a lot in the acting process and all that?
He did. He was like a mentor for me, and he was classically trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London, as well as a college graduate. But we would play theater sort of games with the scenes, and like he might play Greg and I would play Mike Brady or Peter, different roles, and do speed reads and try and change the meaning of a scene, that kind of a thing, that kind of keep our acting chops stretched so that we could deliver it the way it was intended to be seen, natural.
I was going to ask you, who did you learn the most from, out of the whole family? I would guess it would be Florence Henderson. She was the senior actor, wasn't she?
Well, the two questions there. One is I learned different things from our three major leads. Ann B. Davis, Alice, who was might be considered the most senior.
That's true.
But Robert Reed had a very, very successful series, a dramatic series called The Defenders with an actor, Eugene Marshall, and which won many, many awards. And so he had been acting more, I think, for a longer period of time than Florence, who primarily cut her chops on Broadway and in musicals like Oklahoma, and as a singer and cabaret performer. She played Vegas and club dates and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of different backgrounds. I never made that connection with him.
Mm-hmm. And Barry, now I was going to more of that relationship you had, and you talked about the family relationship. You had to do that to keep things going every week, right? And when you film all the time, and especially at that time of period, and really the expectations of the age groups and stuff, that you had to treat it like a family with this many people on that were acting in this show. Wouldn't you agree? Like that process you're all together so much. Hopefully you get along.
Well, hopefully is right. And indeed, during the filming portions of the year, which was about 6 to 9 months, we spent oftentimes more time together as a television family than we did with our own families. But ironically, it's very, very unusual. If you talk to a half a dozen child stars about their experiences in the series that they were in, many of them will say that it was not comfortable and it was not enjoyable. It was a lot of work and oftentimes did not get along with their castmates. Danny Bonaducci, for instance, did not get along well with David Cassidy until after the show. We, on the other hand, did, and kind of leaned on one another. And it made the filming seamless, easy for us. And when we started going out on the road and touring as the Brady Six, the musical group, and things like that, which we did a few times, it made things much, much easier. So I became kind of like the reliable brother Greg. I'd be protective of the kids, and Bobby and Cindy would, have needs some looking after and that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Did you say the show was on for 5 years or longer?
5 original years,
Yeah.
1969 to 1974.
So you started at 14. You must have been having a ball.
Oh, it was great. All my teenage years were spent at Paramount Studios with and Stage 5, filming the show and growing up.
So what did you enjoy most about the character? I mean, was that really you? Was that your personality and your temperament?
Well, yeah, I think it's fair to say that the writers were looking not to create caricatures, but real people. And they wanted the kids to be kids. And the shows and the episodes revolved around very relatable kinds of subjects that most families and most kids growing up encounter, whether it's being jealous of your sister or your ego swelling because you got your picture in the newspaper, or you were traumatized because the dog stole your doll.
Did you ever give the writers some ideas that maybe they weren't aware of, because they aren't your age, obviously. They don't know what kids were doing those days in school or talking about?
Well, sometimes we did. Writers, being the pros that they are, had their own families, and sometimes would borrow from those different stages and things. Where we came in, we could help them with the cool dialogue of the day. Where sometimes they would throw in a far out where a groovy belonged. And, where you needed an out of sight, they might have a cool or something like that.
So did you like, Barry, the fact of the moral of the story and how, again, this relationship that every week there was some sort of moral or something for the entire family to watch the television show and learn from? Even though there was kind of a bunch of things that were, the crackpot kind of funny things, but really
idealistic. Yeah. Yes, I did. I appreciate it. I think that's the magic of the formula of the show, and I think that's what's made it relatable now to multiple generations. These kinds of morals and ideals and communication skills that we learned our lessons from inside the episodes are still relevant today. Well, they were relevant before as well, but they're relevant today without being so period specific. Those things, that the episodes that were taking us through the different stages of life, if you took away the clothing and the fashion statements that we made with the bell bottoms and headbands, etc., are still relevant today.
I'm so glad that you're a normal person, that it didn't ruin you like so many other child actors. You mentioned Danny Bonaducci, and there's just so many others who did not do well. What do you attribute, staying out of trouble to, and staying off drugs, and staying, just clean?
Well, not getting caught, of course, helped a lot. But
that means you're smart.
I do think there were a lot of stabilizers in our production and the way in which our creator Sherwood Schwartz ran the show and our lives. He let us be kids. He didn't restrict us from being out when we were not filming. For instance, Susan Olsen was allowed to take ice skating lessons or learning to ride a horse, and I went snow skiing and riding motorcycles, and I was surfing, and there weren't restrictions placed on us. Plus, interestingly, none of the parents of the 6 kids in the show had any divorces in their nuclear families at home.
Wow,
so I think that created some stability. I want to circle back to a minute for just a second here about Danny Bonaducci, who's a friend of mine.
Sure.
And I've worked with.
We interviewed his ex-wife, so we may only have one side of the story.
You definitely only have one side of the story. You get the rest if you were fortunate enough to interview his current wife, who will do no publicity at all. So it's a tough get. But Danny is more than just a survivor. He has thrived following his television show, in which he was married to his ex-wife. He's currently and has been working in radio for many years, but he has the #1 morning drive show in Seattle. He continues to work as an actor. He's very funny and in demand for various events. and speaking engagements. He's not drinking, and he stopped smoking as well. So
Well, good for him.
That helped a lot. But he's
Other
doing
child,
just great.
yeah, Barry. Other child actors, in your opinion, really didn't overcome things like Danny. I was about to disagree with Dave on that fact because I knew about his radio success and other things. But yes, he had some rock bottom times, but he overcame addiction, Barry. Right? That's that's where you wouldn't call him that kind of child. Some of these childhood actors that we talk about, like Home Alone or certain things like that, where we really are seeing some sad stories.
Macaulay's struggles. I think Dana Plato, obviously struggled. Many don't. There are a lot of pressures involved. I'll tell you what I'm doing though. Currently, and I'll just kind of tease it because we actually launched this next week. I was hoping it was going to be done by the time we had a chance to chat, but it's still kind of interesting about child stars and what have you, and the kids and people that we grew up with on television. I'm hosting and co-producing a classic TV star cruise with Celebrity Cruise Lines out of Fort Lauderdale, 5 days Western Caribbean, and we're bringing in 12 of the favorite people that we grew up with. So I'll name a few that we have secured and will be a part of our cruise. And people can come on the cruise and we'll get to know everybody and talk to them. And we'll do panels. We're going to do activities together. We're going to do shore activities, et cetera, for 6 days, eating and karaoke and all kinds of fun stuff. We have Jimmy Walker will be on our cruise. We have Jerry Mathers from The Beaver.
Oh, wow.
Going way back to John Provost with Lassie. Kathy Garver, who is Sissy on Family Affair. Judy Norton-Taylor from The Waltons. John Schneider, formerly of it just popped out of my mind. Was it
Dukes of Hazzard, right?
Dukes,
yes.
Formerly of Dukes, and now star of
Dancing with the
Stars.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to be on board with us, and so we have a great mix of people that are coming on, and that will go out next year. It actually leaves in November of 2019, which is why we're still ramping up and finishing the website, making sure all the operators know how to handle the phone and describe what's going on. So,
all right, fantastic.
That's kind of a thing that's given me a connection to kids and younger people that were on television shows, and like many people have with the Brady Bunch, have grown up with these different shows, and they'll have a chance to meet them, talk with them, and basically they'll feel like they're all best friends by the time the 6 day cruise is over.
Barry, I've interviewed John a few times. He is an unbelievable guy, really down to earth, really a really nice guy, and all the other people, a fantastic opportunity. And you'll have to give us the website at the end for that for sure, Barry. Now, let's talk a little bit about life after the Brady Bunch. We talked about where you are now, which seems fantastic, and people definitely need to come out to Branson to see you, Barry. But what was it a hard transition from after the Brady Bunch in your career in any ways? Or yeah.
Well, in many ways, it was. There's an awful lot of things going on, and there's a great deal of momentum. And with cancellation, typically networks want to just kind of put actors out to pasture for a while. It's unusual to go from one series to another, with the exception of David Spade. He's like the only guy I know who did go from one show to another. So there's that element. There's also the growing element. So everything is kind of taken care of for you. You're spoiled on a set, and adults are kind of bending to you and wanting to make sure you're comfortable in every possible way, and that all goes away. So you've got to pick it up. What I did, I knew music would be important. I went to New York and I auditioned for the show Pippin. And I won the role against some pretty stiff competition, and did the first touring company as Pippin, and then was invited to join the cast as Pippin in New York on Broadway. And then that started a whole other career for me. And to date, I've done now 85 different productions of shows all over the country, crisscrossed many, many times, and it's been a great part of my life, and I've recorded. I've been a DJ on radio for Sirius XM, and I wrote a best-selling book that I produced into a TV movie called Growing Up Brady. I've a spokesperson for several different companies, including an ambassador for the classic TV network, MeTV. So that's kind of how things have evolved until I came here to Branson to do my show, which I'm no longer doing here. So if you come to Branson, there are plenty of shows to see. Mine is not one of them.
So they can't knock on your door, Barry, and you'll perform for them?
They can. You know what? I have a trio. Instead of a big production show that I did here, the 70s music celebration, I have a trio called Barry Williams and the Traveliers, 2 guitars and percussion, and my wife is the lead singer, and I sing, and our guitar player. We go all over the place and do largely familiar, standard, classic tunes from the 60s, 70s, 80s. And enjoy going out and having fun with that.
Wow, that's awesome, Barry. I think it's great to hear how well you talked about the transition was hard, but you really picked everything up. You saw how important your brand was from the Brady Bunch and how it continued to be on the show. And you used that to capitalize in many different ways. People have to understand whatever your brand is, whatever you're known for, you can use that to open up so many more doors, right? Isn't that true, Barry? Having something that kind of is your calling card in certain ways to kind of
having something that you're proud of helps a lot as well. And I've always appreciated people that have enjoyed the show that I'm best known for, Brady Bunch. But it does lead into other conversations. And I'm grateful now because of all the social platforming. So there are Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts. And, of course, a website where I've put everything together. So you've got name and photos and what's going on and clips from the Traveliers that you can see. And of course, it will have a link to the Classic TV Stars cruise that I was talking about next week. In fact, why don't I go ahead and give that to you now? Is
Absolutely.
this a good time?
Yes, that's perfect time, Barry.
I tried to make it as easy as possible. BarryWilliamsOfficial.com. And the reason it's official, because apparently there are other Barry Williamses out here in this country. I can't go figure. And I wanted to sort it out from everybody else's. So it's BarryWilliamsOfficial.com, and you can pretty much find everything to bring you up to date and up to speed there. I stay on it and update it all the time.
You are really, and I know that your wife is very, very involved, Barry, in your promotions and keeping you up to date in what's going on, and that's really important, isn't it, Barry, to have a teammate, a partner to help in this whole promotion end when all these different moving parts compared to when you first started in acting and entertainment, how much more there's to do than there was then.
You sound suspiciously like a happily married man, because you're right. There is nothing better than having a partner that you're wed to kind of join forces with and take on the schedules. And if you go to BarryWilliamsOfficial.com, you can see pictures of her too.
Yeah, I wonder, have you ever gone to Steel City Con? I'd never get to cover it, Barry. They don't allow it, but I don't know if you ever went to Steel City in Pittsburgh. That's where I'm at.
Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that's the one in Pittsburgh. Because everyone, I'm sure they want you. I know for a fact that would be a big draw. You would be a huge draw for that. I'm sure you've done the other cons, other cons.
I've done some other cons, and I've done a lot of work in a lot of shows at Heinz Hall and the Benedum and in Pittsburgh, and I've really, really good friends there. I also did the last show I did there, I think, was The Sound of Music as Captain Grieg. So I will look into that. Is the Steel City Con? Is that is that one of Wizard World's?
I don't know for sure, but I will go ahead and reach out to your wife and give her the information to make sure you reach out, because I think and then if you do come into town, we're gonna have to do a television interview. That's no doubt about it. If you do, I'm sure you'll.
I'd have a ball.
All right, that's great. All right, the last question, Barry, for the show, especially when I am with my co-host caregiver Dave. I do 5 hours of programming a week, but we devote this time, especially. He's a fantastic guy. What he's doing out there and going and speaking, but he has a mission, and Barry, it's a great mission. It involves caregiving. Let me tell you the story. You go to caregiverdave.com for more information, but the guy is amazing, Barry, in the fact that what he did, and this is really, really an interesting thing, is that his wife ended up having a severe suffering illness that made her basically have to be dependent on somebody else. And he was a caregiver, and he's spending his entire life now devoted to caregiving and helping other caregivers go through the challenges that they have to go through when they take care of somebody. Either they're going to be a caregiver or someone's going to have to take care of them at one point in their lives. And at caregiverdave.com, it really tells that story, Barry, and he really shows that true passion to help others. And really, you wouldn't believe it. He's on the phone and talking to people and really just trying to give them as many tips as possible, because as I know, how difficult it is if you're even taking care of your kids or if you're taking care of an older loved one, how challenging it is without those resources.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. These are our angels.
Yeah.
Angels that can do that and give of themselves selflessly like that. So does he have a question that goes along with that?
Yeah, so his question is, have you ever been a caregiver, Barry, to your parents or anything?
I have.
Yeah.
I lost my mother. Lost. I don't know if that's the right word. She transitioned. She passed away in April of last year. So just a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful that in toward the final part of her life, I was able to be with her on a regular basis, and she still had her faculties. She was around. She was cognizant and could speak, and wasn't really taken down by an illness until finally she just the clock started slowing down. So it was a very rewarding experience for me and a loving experience for me.
Well, Barry, that's great. I'm glad that you were able to tell that story, and you see the importance of caregiving. And that's one of my missions, working with Dave on this show and bringing the word out that, guess what? You're not alone. I see this all the time when I was a school teacher, Barry, and the older teachers were taking care of their parents. And that's what happens to all of us. After our kids grow up, then we take care of our parents. And we have to understand the resources and the challenges that are out there. And someone like Dave dedicates his life to that. So, well, thanks again for calling, Barry. Best of luck in your ventures. And I will definitely try to reach out to Steel City Con and tell your wife, let's get you out to Pittsburgh for sure to see these great people here, because it's one of the best cons out there is Steel City Con, in my opinion, with how ravenous these fans are in Pittsburgh that I'm sure are huge fans of yours. So thanks again.
I'd love to be a part of it.
All right.
Thanks so much.
All right, Barry.
Great talking with you.
Good talking to you. Take care. Bye-bye.